Today we have a really short gospel on Mother's Day and on what we call the Feast of the Good Shepherd today. You'll recall that throughout the Gospel of John, Jesus has been dropping hints at his divinity. He gets close to telling the Jews who he is, but he's a little dodgy because he knows the minute he does, all hell is literally going to break loose. So he keeps trying to inform them who exactly he is. And one of the things he calls himself, as you will recall from small groups, is he will call himself the shepherd. He will call himself the gate, the shepherd's gate. That's the little alleyway where the sheep go in and out of pasture. And he says it's really narrow. That gate's pretty narrow, which means not everyone is going to enter. And if there's a stampede like on Black Fridays, you're not going to get what you want. So Jesus is the gate. He's the Good Shepherd on our Good Shepherd Sunday and throughout our life, not just today. In the first reading, we see Paul and Barnabas getting a rash from some local Jews who don't really care for them, and they shake the dust off their sandals. It reminds me when we were kids. I don't know if you ever were given the job of the blackboard, the eraser cleaner, but we go outside and we wonder why a lot of us have COPD. But we would do that, and that's what the disciples did. That was their custom. If they weren't accepted there, they, not in horror, not in shame, not in disgust would they do it. In fact, it said they went off joyfully. In other words, yes, we're going to be persecuted, so be it. It's part of the package. We were told that, and they're happy that they're persecuted. The second reading that Paulette read, she got a little break from St. Paul this morning. She didn't have to say brothers and sisters, if you noticed. And the second reading is very, very interesting because John in Revelation, it is Revelation, am I correct? I thought it would be. But he's very poetic. If you read Revelation, it's very hard to understand. Have you ever read poetry and you're like, what the hell is this poet trying to convey? I can't figure it out at all. But John in his poetry puts Jesus the Lamb. He calls him the Lamb. And that Lamb will open the gates of eternity for us. And both Jew, Gentile, Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, one day we will all sing together, holy, holy, holy. Holy is the Lamb of God. I'm sure we'll do other things in heaven, but that's one of our jobs, is to sing holy, holy. So try to get it right here on earth, because you'll be singing it a lot in the afterlife. The Father and I are one. Wow. This was it. This was it. The Jews had taken enough. He kept dropping hints here and there, and they were trying to catch him. But he wouldn't give them enough to chew on to catch him in blasphemy. But the dam broke. The Father and I are one, he says in today's gospel. But no one can take you from me, because I am stronger than all. That's pretty much what he's saying. And no one can take you from my Father, because my Father is stronger than all. When you are in my hands, You are in his hands, because he's got the whole world, as the song goes, in his hands. And when the Father has you in the palm of his hand, Jesus is holding up you as well, because the Father and I are one. Now there is a lesson here, and don't miss it. If you forget everything about Mass today, just don't miss this. I want to really try to drive it home, and I hope it's a home run. Jesus takes us to the heights of truth about himself finally. He reveals himself to us and to the Jews of his time. He is one with the Father. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And that starts off the Gospel of John. And that Word became flesh and dwelt among us. No one can snatch you from my hand or from the Father's hand. Both hands are one hand. In other words, that doctrine, a big word for theology, that biblical proposition, you might want to call it, the Father and I are one, are always related to our human life here on earth. That doctrine doesn't make a difference for life in eternity. But that doctrine, while we are alive, is so vitally important that the Father and I are one. We can't be Christian without that doctrine. It's impossible. So Jesus answered to the question in verse 24, I am the Messiah and infinitely more. And all of this is infinitely relevant for your eternal safety. It's for your own safety. So what's clear here is how the Jewish leaders understood verse 30. If you look at verse 30, where Jesus said, I and the Father are one. Now the Jews heard blasphemy. Blasphemy because, being a man, he made himself as God. Were the Jews wrong? Were they wrong? No, they were not wrong. In their teaching, anyone that compared themselves to God, anyone who said the word God out loud or even wrote it down, would be considered a blasphemer. They heard a claim to Jesus' divinity, to his deity. They finally heard it. And for them, they had had enough. Because their religion has taught them from childhood that man cannot be God at all. So they're not wrong. We can't persecute them too much. This would not be, today would not be the first time they accused Jesus of talking this way. If you look at John 5:18, they were seeking to kill him more and more because he was breaking the Sabbath, if you remember. But he was even calling God his own Father. Never mind, oh my God, this was radical, my brothers and sisters. This was never heard before. Saying that God and I are one. He's my Father. He used the word daddy, which probably irritated them even more because it was a term of endearment, like Papa. And so they were really incited. And you can't really blame them. So they are not just saying you're acting like a God. They're saying you're acting like God. And he was God. But they did not have the eyes to see. So their response is understandable, I think. I don't come down hard on them. A lot of times we do when we read it. We go, oh, look at them. They don't believe. Look at them. They should believe. Well, they should. They probably should have believed. But you've got to put yourself in their shoes as well. blasphemy was a crime of execution. And a man claiming to be God, they were right by the law. They were right. Was Jesus making this claim? I think so. He finally let the cat out of the bag, as it were. I and the Father are one. Well, they could stretch it a little bit, and they could probably say, well, there might be a dozen ways where the Father and I could be one. One in purpose, one in mission, one in action together, even one in affection, be affectionate toward God. This would all be okay, but the fact that he claimed to be God was it for them. They had had it. And don't be too hard on them. If we were in their shoes at that time, I don't know what I would be doing. You know, we always think we'd be running after Jesus. Ask Peter how that worked out. You know, we always say, oh, I would never leave you, Lord. I'm not sure. I really am not. I'm not there, and I don't know, but I'm not sure. But they were right. They were understanding these words with the glasses of Judaism. And Jesus knew they were right. He absolutely knew they were right through the law. The whole context of the Gospel of John says that they were in fact right. And there are many passages in the Bible that prove that they were correct. However, they were seeing with not the eyes of faith. They saw the miracles. They saw him blessing people. Many of them saw him breaking the loaves and feeding the 5,000. Many of these Jews saw people walking who could not walk, people who were troubled by maybe demons or maybe a bad psyche, who were totally healed. The Jews did see Jesus do all kinds of signs, wonders, and miracles. But they were focused on one thing. They were focused on the law. And the law, my brothers and sisters, will not get you too far. Do not prescribe always to the law, but to the heart. How do we do this? It's very, very easy, not complicated at all. Open your heart. The Buddhists and Hindus, when they are praying, there's something called energy centers, chakras, another word. And one of them, one of the major ones, is the heart. Is the heart. And when we open our heart, as Mary opened her heart to God's will, when we open our heart and close our head and turn Henry off, then the Spirit comes. The Spirit will work through your mind, but He loves to reside in your heart. That's where He lives, in your heart. Every major religion on earth has one thing, and you can boil it and distill it down to the essence of this. God is love. God is love. And you're not going to find love here, but you will find it here. On this Mother's Day, and on every day hereafter. Amen? Amen.